Hi, this is Center Star, Chris Baird. This is video 14 in our series. Today I'm going to talk about hollow planet sounds. And if you guys would like, subscribe, share. Definitely hit the notification icon and click the bell to where you get all future videos. I have not had the opportunity to go back and put all of the future links in all of the previous videos and organize it to where also the live streams are in there. But I do have the previous videos with the live streams actually going back to the last video in the series. This is going to be part of our Hollow Planet series as well. I think it's like number 3 or number 4 of that. I didn't check. But also with this today, in the top comment in the description, is going to be some links to some external videos that will help you to listen to what I'm going to talk about today. Those in my messenger notification group already have a head start on that. If you want to get a head start on like what the next video is going to be about, look me up through official Hollow Earth group or any of the groups listed in the description or on my channel about. And look me up through there, Christopher Baird, and I can get you plugged in if you message me. Also, if you want to be my friend on there, send me a message. I've been getting a lot of random friend requests. I do not accept those. If somebody wants to be my friend, they need to contact me and say, hey, this is what I'm about. You know what I mean? So, anyways, again, hollow planet sounds. Now, here's what I want to tell you about that. I was listening to a game, and if you look it up, it's a game that was being played by between 2 baseball teams, and the announcer hears this sound, and everybody in the whole stadium could hear it. It was ramping up and slowing down of like a wind vortex sound, and nobody could figure out what it was. And this was up in the Jersey area. You know, I was going to look up the 2 teams, but yeah, I'll definitely have the link in the description. And I remember hearing that sound before, but where I had heard that sound was Earth sounds from space. And so I linked the 2 together, and what I realized is, due to the wind speed of our vortexes and the max speeds, it slows up slows down and then it speeds up, creating a frequency sound that can be heard in space. Now people ask, well, how do you measure that? Well, these are actually satellites that are pretty close to Earth. They're still in the upper reaches of the atmosphere, but we also can record it using sound waves that travel through space. And people say, well, sound can't travel through a vacuum. I believe, although it is a vacuum, that there's some medium up there, whether it be dust and dirt and all of that. But even the people that go to outer space, when they come out of the airlock and they're undressing, they can smell what smells like exploded TNT from space. They describe it as a sulfur smell. And that would make sense. I mean, we've had tons of explosions or collisions that have happened, and I would imagine that that's exactly what space would smell like, is like the smell of decay, explosion. So, how does this work? Well, as I've said before, there is a secondary vortex that reaches down to the center star. And please do look up the previous Hollow Earth videos and really watch my whole series, because it covers things from A to Z. And although I'm skipping around into different series, it's leading into different points as I get there. But basically, we have the center star, which is metal decaying. It produces its own heat and light, and a soft radiation decay enough to give life to the inside of the Earth, but not to be like an external sun, which is like a nuclear furnace. So I labeled it the center star in 2012. And basically, you have this vortex that goes down to the poles and cools it from top to bottom, underneath that 450 degrees, allowing it to retain magnetism, okay? And these charged particulates ride out, and there's actually a little bit of cloud vapor around the center star itself, Okay? But Olaf Jansen described that there was no clouds inside the Earth. Again, it rained once every 24 hours from the water condensing just before the cool of the evening, as the temperature transition, and the center star stays stable. It's actually the Earth rotating around it that gives the day and night, because again, the slag side faces the exterior sun. In this case, it would be right in between fall and spring. And so the dark side, their nighttime, which is our daytime, is facing pretty much directly right at the equator based on the tilt of the Earth. And as that vortex goes out, it creates the Aurora Borealis, okay? But in the winter, when this is tilted this way, not only do we get the Aurora Borealis, but we get the multitude of colors coming out at low levels of light because we have ice in the neck, and that gives us a rainbow effect, and the Vikings called that the Bifrost. Well, we talked about the moon recently and weather and how that ramps up and slows down. So when the moon's on this side, it gives us an extra degree or so, which equates to about 10-degree fluctuation in temperature in Fahrenheit between the time the moon's over here and we're a little bit closer to the sun, and the moon's on the backside, a full moon versus a new moon, and getting colder temperatures. And we get the colder temperatures. What that does is it increases the ramp up of the vortex based on the 74 to about 78 degree temperature, about 75 degrees inside the Earth, and it picks up and speeds up this vortex. So usually in the winter we get quite a bit of wind during those couple weeks that were colder too. But what we're hearing is the multiple openings on the Earth making wind sounds, all right? And they go at a certain frequency for Earth based on its size, the amount of atmosphere, and pretty much the menial wind speed at these vortex openings. The highest winds recorded on Earth thus far was really close to Baffin Bay, where I found pictures, multiple pictures, alluding to a hole right there in Baffin Bay, but there's also the North Polar opening, okay? And so when we listen to this if it was the Blue Jays or whatever baseball game, we listen to that sound and Earth sounds, they are pretty much spot on as far as listening to it. It's almost undeniable, okay? And even if this is not ramped up and going really fast, maybe at that time the South Pole one ramps up a little bit. We tend to get more wind and directional winds in the winter. And that's when, yeah, again, we're at like, at the poles, we're at like minus 40 to minus 70, even more degrees below in Fahrenheit. We're at 75 inside the Earth. So, of course, there's going to be mass lower atmosphere exchange, okay? And then as it transitions, sometimes these side openings start working, and these kind of die down. And then we end up with, like, let's say the North Pole summer, and the winds are really slow. Storms just seem to go to and fro. We get more moisture actually evaporating off the ocean and creating storms, or evaporating off of lakes and giving us lake effect storms. Then we do what's coming out of the entrance to the hollow earth at the South Pole at that time. That's where the majority of the moisture is coming out, and it's more intaking at this hole and the side holes during the summertime. Then when it changes, again, it's trying to pull in cool air, and it ramps up, and this drives our strong wind direction, okay, from west to east. And as above, as you're looking at that, that's counterclockwise. But if you're looking up at it, imagining the North Pole, it's a clockwise rotation as standing up underneath, okay? So there's another thing. We're also hearing these high-pitched trumpeting sounds every once in a while. Now, we may not hear this opening in these lower frequency sounds, except for occasionally during like storms, because they tend to have that same kind of sound. All of the storms, the vortex and everything have the same sound. But when you blow over a Coke bottle or into an instrument, you get a lower tone, And to reach a higher frequency, you give it an extra boost of vibration and air pushing over it. So if you take that same Coke bottle, okay, all right, and you put your lips over it. Again, I'm not a perfect artist, but you put your lips over it, and you're blowing with your lower lip here, and this upper lip just open a little bit and kind of push down into the bottle a little bit right there. What you'll end up getting when you blow over it is a low frequency pitch. But if you blow harder, you get a louder blasting pitch, and it's higher in frequency. And that higher pitch will carry much longer distances and be heard audibly easier than you can hear this low pitch. So there are cases where people are hearing these high trumpeting pitches around the world and equating them to the biblical pitches heard in the Bible. The issue I take with that is the Bible pretty much says these trumpets will be heard by everyone. Okay? And there is a thing called Project Bluebeam out there. For those of you who don't know, it's a hypothetical thing. It's been around for years. Reportedly, satellites up in space have the ability to send out sound and also video. So they literally could project images on the top of the atmosphere and also send sound frequency into the atmosphere. And if you were going to do something worldwide, that would be the easiest way to do it, is have all these satellites triggered to send out a trumpeting sound at once. And although our weather has been changing and we've had rapid changes and everything, we haven't had a definite worldwide trumpeting sound. Not to say that this would actually only be located in the Middle East, but it would be something that would be full awareness. Everybody would know that this was a major sound sending the end times, one would assume. Now, there are other sounds that people are hearing, booming sounds like boom, boom, okay, off in the distance. Well, first off, we have asteroids, okay, rocks that come into the Earth's atmosphere. Now, Earth, again, has this layer, okay, of water in the upper atmosphere. Okay, and it's not like a lake or a river, it's just moisture. And these rocks are traveling so fast that they hit the upper atmosphere and they start burning up, and then they hit this water moisture layer, and it's so cold. All right, and it could even be liquid nitrogen. It could be a number of things. The stuff that gets the blue hue off on Earth, that it literally fractures and explodes. And, most of the time we don't hear it. We just see like a seafoam green or bright white or whatever light go through the sky. But occasionally we get the big ones coming in, and those ones rupture and explode. There was an event in 1908 called the Tunguska event in Siberia that may have been a water-type piece of comet that blew, left no remnants, but wiped out miles and miles of forest. All right. Some people have claimed to find a little bit of signature of like nickel and some other things, I think barium and stuff like that in that area. But that those are unsubstantiated. They haven't found a definite crater, but they can see the blast pattern, and it was so bright, okay, and lasted so long because of the disruption in the atmosphere that people in Scotland, okay, and went out and started playing golf in the middle of the night. I kid you not, for at least an hour, there was that much energy. And it could have been because of this event, there was fires that erupted. Could have been all the trees on fire, such a hot glow over such a wide area that it literally gave them enough light to play sports in the middle of the night. Now, we're talking not too much electricity around then. So, yeah. But we hear these booms around Earth. Now, these could be a number of different things. Again, the asteroids, but also like fracking. Fracking is the removal of oils in the rock, but also the spraying in of water. In 1976, near Denver, they were pumping leftover Vietnam chemicals into the ground on the Olympic Quarter 1976 bicentennial. It has, I'm saying Olympic quarter, I meant bicentennial quarter. It has an Olympic flame on it, and that was because for the 1978 Olympics, they were trying to get the Olympics to come to Denver for the Winter Olympics. Because of this pressuring into the earth, it caused a lot of earthquakes around that time, and so they decided to change the venue, and Denver was not selected for those Olympics, but they were a strong candidate for it, and many believed that we were going to get them up until these earthquakes started happening. The theory was, or hypothesis was, that these leftover gases and things were being pushed in the ground, and they were lubricating the faults and causing earthquakes. So they capped off the wells and quit trying to store this stuff underneath the ground. When we have fracking, we're literally pressing water in there, and it's literally finding seams, blowing fault lines open and rupturing. There are some other hypotheses of worldwide tunneling going on, so that we have under the ground transcontinental tunneling. There is also some other hypothesis of underground trucking that goes to cities. And this is, goes with the, are we going to have Marduk return and the whole bunker thing, and them setting up, an emergency place to have for citizens around the world. We're finding all kinds of abandoned cities under the ground. There was a famous one not too long ago where a guy was looking in his basement, found something or the other, well just outside. Either way, they found this whole entire city underneath the ground. Just amazing find. And he could have kept it to himself, but he didn't. And it's become pretty much a national treasure for that area. But, just amazing carved out cities. So amazing that people wonder, could humans have carved all of these cities? Or did somebody come in and do the work for us and leave these set up and say, okay, when this happens, you guys go retreat in there? Or did we have the technologies back then to do the burrowing? Because the way we tunnel now, we've got these huge tunnel boring machines, and they take a lot of fuel, technology, diamond drill bits, and everything to get through the rock. But, it could be another thing. Now, if you want to really reach out there to hypothetical land, there's another hypothesis that, we've breached some intercrustal cities, and every once in a while we have to go to war with whoever we run into. That goes back to, in Russia, they tried to dig a really deep well, the deepest on Earth. They dropped a microphone down it, and what they heard was simmering kind of sounds, but really it also sounded like people screaming. Like maybe when they drilled down, they breached some steam, or maybe even some hot water, and when they drilled down, they reached a cavern, and all this heat and steam was now going into this underground city, and people were screaming and running away. They immediately capped the well off at the top. What that may or may not have done, if they did cap it at the top, if there was people literally screaming down there, and there was a city, capping it at the top would help keep air from going in, which would help keep it from exchanging the water and steam and letting it get down in there. It would give them that opportunity to cap it. Now, I don't know if you can believe all that or not, but basically, there are lots of unexplainable sounds coming out that people are hearing, screeching sounds. I believe a lot of these screeching sounds and strange sounds in the sky are definitely coming from, ramp ups of extra high winds on these openings around the Earth. Okay, and then also, what's really cool about this is each planet that is active. It doesn't mean it's alive inside, but active with a center star and air exchange and flow, has its own sound, its own frequency. We can designate the planets by their own sounds, but guess what? There are moons, okay? And protoplanets that have these frequencies too, suggesting that the inside of them could be potential for life. Things like that. So here's where this gets really cool. If we can send a signal catcher out that can detach from the white noise that's coming in from all of the planets, and we can hone that in and get to an area where we think there's a planet. If we can find one that has the same sound frequency and we can look at the star and how it wobbles, and it's in the habitable zone, we just might find another externally habitable planet. But as we know, with the Hollow Earth hypothesis, we don't even have to go that far. We have other life inside of our planet and possibly in the crust, and maybe all over our solar system. Okay, Titan. I always draw a blank on the other one. Europa. There we go. There's even one in the asteroid belt that they're calling a protoplanet that has an interesting glow signature in a crater towards the pole, even when it's in the nighttime portion and nothing else is aimed there. So it's not reflective. It almost looks like you can see sunlight peeking through a thin part of an opening gap at the top. So who knows? Maybe even that little moon or planetoid either A, has a lot of protected leftover center star material from Tiamat, and it's surrounded by enough debris to where maybe it can grow into another planet, and or it started to, but it just didn't have an atmosphere, but it's still active on the inside. Pretty cool stuff. So if we can use this and somehow catch these signals, the problem is that light waves travel very fast and they're short, and it takes a long time for them to expand outward. But sound waves start in a long width, okay? And that's why when you see a flash quarter mile away, it takes a second or two before you hear the bang, because the sound waves travel slower. You've ever heard of breaking the speed barrier, the sound barrier? That's like 700 and some odd miles an hour. Once you cross that, you get a sonic boom because you're now traveling faster than sound itself. And people are not permitted to do sonic booms over cities because like areas like Cheyenne, Wyoming, but by Warren Air Force Base back in the day and other places, when these birds would come in and fly in real fast, not birds, but fast craft, they would literally break windows out. So they started doing some regulations on if and where they can do that. A lot of the test flights, of course, are over the Rocky Mountains or out in the plains to keep people's windows from being broken from sonic booms. But light travels a lot faster than that as well, so it's going to reach here faster. So even if we get light from this planet coming, and it's giving us a visual symbol that there could be a planet in this area, by the time the sound gets there, okay, tons and tons more slower, okay, and we finally verify that by the time we got there, unless we were able to fold space, by the time we got there, perhaps this sun wouldn't even exist, let alone the planet itself. So this also causes a conundrum of, if we do find something, are we find something that's still there? Or are we actually looking back in time, the further out we go, and it's not there at all? And if we started traveling there, we would run up to suddenly a supernova halfway, and by the time we got there, we would just come into a destruction zone and a collapsed black hole, But, that gets in a theoretical, light speed travel, all of that stuff. Could we get there fast enough to check it out? So, lots of cool stuff. But yeah, go listen to Earth sounds, and you can listen to some of the moon and planet sounds. Check out the link where I link the two different sounds. And again, like, subscribe, share if you found this interesting. And I hope you enjoyed that. And I look forward to sharing more with you guys next week. Again, if you want to go into the description, check out my groups, get into the Messenger notification group. I do lately try to drop a hint of what's coming up in the future videos. Peace.